Hello, travelers, and welcome back to the Tips and Trips podcast. This episode is brought to you by my anxiety about the current state of the world. Okay, no, maybe that's not that funny, but for real though, is anyone else getting an unnerving amount of information on their social media lately about things like trash mountains in India and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? I feel like my algorithm is trying to hurt me, but in the spirit of positivity and productivity, in this episode, I am going to be talking about sustainable travel and how you can reduce your impact on the environment while still enjoying your adventures. So, buckle up and let's just get right into it. So, when I'm talking about sustainable travel, I'm talking about how you can minimize your impact on the environment while supporting the local communities that you're visiting, as well as ways that you can leave a more positive impact on the places that you visit when you leave. As travelers, I feel like it's important to acknowledge that world travel really is a privilege in so many ways, and to recognize that we, as the travelers that are coming into these countries and spaces, do have a responsibility to help protect the places that we're visiting. Now, that's not to say that tourism is always at the root of the issue that a lot of these tourist destinations face, but we really do need to acknowledge, I think, like it or not, that at the very least, it's part of the problem. One of my favorite destinations to visit is the island of Bali in Indonesia, for example. The people there are so kind. Their more off the beaten path destinations are like absolute paradise on earth, and you can enjoy beaches and surfing and waterfall hikes and rice terrace views all within just a short drive of one another. But despite all the beauty that you see on social media surrounding Bali and Bali tourism, the truth of the matter is that Bali has a huge trash problem. Now, a lot of people are quick to attribute Bali's trash problem to tourism only, which, again, is certainly part of the problem. I would never argue otherwise, and that's why sustainable travel practices are so important. But I think it's important to address the fact that there's also a lack of proper waste management systems on the island, which is in a lot of ways at the root of their issues. And obviously their increase in tourism over the years has made this more of a problem, but their rapidly growing population has contributed to this as well. And many of their local communities and businesses still don't even have access to proper waste disposal facilities, which ultimately leads to their trash being dumped into the rivers, onto their beaches, and into the ocean. And to be clear, I don't mean to pick on Bali here specifically. There are many islands and countries that are dealing with similar issues, and Bali just happens to be the one that I'm most familiar with, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a government official to understand that if these are the issues that we're seeing now with tourism and growing populations, things are clearly going to get much worse if nothing is done now. Which begs the question, what can we do? Because we can actually do a lot more than people think. And looking around at a lot of these trash-covered beaches, it's obvious that even a little bit can go a long way with everyone on board and participating in these more sustainable practices. So one way to practice sustainable travel, which I'm sure is obvious at this point, is by minimizing your waste. And by this, I specifically mean packing for your travels with more reusable items like water bottles, utensils, fabric shopping bags, or beach bags instead of just buying or using single-use items while you're in your destination. Water bottles really being the easiest and most impactful of these items, I would say. I always bring my own water bottle to fill up at the airport and at hotel lobbies and restaurants throughout my travels. It's an easy way to lessen your impact, and it also saves you money by not having to purchase bottled water wherever you go, so definitely a win-win. According to a report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, over 1 million plastic bottles are purchased around the world every minute. Let that sink in, how wild that is. And many of those bottles, if not most of those bottles, just end up in landfills and oceans, which I think a lot of us, at least in Canada where I live, can be a little bit blind to just how wasteful that is when we aren't personally seeing it pile up around us where we live firsthand. Something else that we can do while we're traveling is to be sure that we're packing out all of our trash when we are hiking or camping or just enjoying outdoor activities, even on day trips, meaning whatever you're bringing into a location with you, you bring it out as well. This not only ensures that you're not leaving anything behind that is going to make a negative impact on the environment, but also is going to get you in the mindset of packing in a more sustainable way because you know that you do have to bring out with you whatever you bring in. And then, of course, showing your support to more local businesses. Try to shop at more local markets as opposed to visiting the local Walmart in the area, for example. Eat at locally owned restaurants and stay at locally owned hotels and guest houses. This way, you're not only supporting the local economy, but also ensuring that the money that you're spending goes directly to the people who are living there. And the added bonus here, if you need one, is that it's also a great way to learn about the local culture and traditions of the place that you're visiting, which I've found that the more you know, the better your trip. So, what about countries that already make sustainable travel easier? Costa Rica is probably the first country that comes to mind for me. Costa Rica is known for its commitment to sustainability and its commitment to ecotourism, and it has been that way for quite some time. Costa Rica has a high percentage of protected land, and they've done a really great job at integrating their tourism through eco lodges and other sustainable tourism initiatives. Costa Rica has been a favorite of mine for a long time now. I actually got married at an eco resort in Costa Rica, fun fact. And for a long time, I would describe Costa Rica as the Bali of Central America, but quite a bit cleaner. And again, not to get down on Bali and not to say that Costa Rica doesn't have its own issues either, but Costa Rica's commitment to ecotourism and sustainable lifestyle, honestly, is pretty evident when you're comparing the two, like I am now. Sweden is another country that's known for its investments in renewable energy and its commitment to sustainable transportation. And New Zealand as well, with its commitment to environmental conservation, sustainability, and from the standpoint of a travel consultant like me, ecotourism operators as well. I just feel like the more that I travel, the stronger that push is for me to want to protect the land that we live on and the communities where all of these beautiful people are living as well. It's a respect for the land and also the people that I wish was more ingrained in all of us, because I think if it was, a lot of these predicaments that we're finding ourselves in these days would have probably been avoided or at the very least been resolved by now. Which leads me into my last thought, really, which is just how important it is to be mindful of cultural differences and behave appropriately in the destinations where we travel. I know that in Thailand, for example, it's considered disrespectful to wear your shoes indoors or in temples, and I've seen a lot of travelers over the years refuse to take their shoes off because it's not their culture and it's not how they were raised. But part of traveling and learning about other cultures is understanding that you're in their home, and just in the same way that you wouldn't want someone coming into your home and disrespecting your cultural beliefs or throwing your trash on the ground, the same is true for them. And I know I'm sounding very travel mom at the moment. I have been known to get that way a little bit, so forgive me, but I couldn't end this episode without sliding that one in there because it really is so important. And I think just the more that we respect each other and each other's homes and the more that we respect the land, just the more beneficial and exciting and beautiful travel in general can be. So that said, that's going to be it for this episode of the Tips and Trips podcast. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. And if you did, I would love for you to subscribe, like, or do whatever other podcast things you can do on the platform that you're listening from. And until the next one, stay great, travel safe, and chat soon.